And we're live.
Good evening. Thank you everyone who is tuning in. This is a virtual live stream neighborhood meeting for a proposed project at the heart of Longmont Church, which would be known as the Wesley Townhomes. By way of introduction, my name is Jennifer Hewitt-Apperson, and I'm a principal planner here with the City of Longmont Planning and Development Services. With us tonight, also from the city, we have Dallas Stiles, who is our live stream technical specialist, tech guru who keeps everything running smoothly for us. We also have David Kennedy, who is with our police department, who can talk a bit about some of the crime-free multifamily initiatives and other assorted SEPTED type principles and such. I will turn over to Pam Hora real quickly. She's with Tetra Tech, and I would to have her introduce herself and her team from the In-Between and the church.
Good evening. My name is Pam Hora. I'm a land use planner with Tetra Tech. And with us tonight, we also have Tim Rocco from the In-Between. He's the executive director with the In-Between. And then Rod Edmonds. Rod is with the Heart of Longmont. He's the treasurer. And also Kelly Deitman with House on Design, the architect for the project.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Pam. Dallas, if I could get my presentation up, that would be fantastic. And you can go ahead and cut to the next slide. So just in terms of what we're going to be doing and discussing this evening, we've already done our welcome and introductions. I'm going to give a quick overview. So the meeting overview and format. Again, this is a neighborhood meeting. This is a neighborhood meeting that the applicant team has requested. It's not mandatory for this particular type of project. So, but they did ask, they felt like there was, in the interest of transparency and being a good neighbor, wanted to get out ahead of any questions that members of the community may have. In terms of the format, I will be giving, like I said, an overview of the process and project. The applicant team will discuss the project in more detail. We'll take a 5-minute break after the applicant team has done their presentation. And then at that point, call-in information will be posted on the screen. And that is when you will call in and get in the queue to ask questions or speak about this particular project. Pretty smooth format. Like I said, I'm going to really talk high level about the processes, as well as some of the questions that I've heard to date regarding this particular property. So next slide. So this slide will be up again at the 5-minute break. This will be the, these are the instructions for when we have the call-in period for questions and answers and questions and comments. There's an 800 number, you'll enter the meeting ID. And again, this information will be on the screen again. So just wanted to make sure you are familiar with what this looks like. Next slide. So in terms of the project overview, the In-Between of Longmont, which is a nonprofit affordable housing developer, is working with the Heart of Longmont Church at 11th and Emory to subdivide 0.8 acres at the north end of their parking lot in order to build 11 affordable rental units for residents earning 40% or less of the area median income. They've got other projects around other properties around town where they've done this. So there are several examples that Tim and Pam can point you to and describe as well. The proposal is consistent with the zoning for the property. This area is zoned residential mixed neighborhood, which does allow for a range of residential uses as well as some other supporting uses. So it allows for single family, it allows for duplexes, townhomes, some small multifamily, up to a density of 18 units per acre. Next slide. So as I indicated, this particular neighborhood meeting is optional for this type of application. We require them for application types that will require a public hearing. what is being the processes that are projects currently under review, I should say, as under two application types: a minor subdivision plat to divide off, to split off that northern piece of property, and then also a site plan. These are both administrative level staff reviews that are reviewed by the Development Review Committee and do not require approval by Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council. So if I can have my plat slide real quick. So while Dallas is pulling this up, I did have a couple of questions from neighbors regarding an easement on the eastern portion of the property. It's a little hard to see here, but at the so the larger lot with the number 6 on it is the in-between property. You'll see a dashed line to the right of the property that goes up towards 12th Avenue and Corey. So this is the original, this is the plat for this particular portion of Longmont. And I did confirm that this is actually a utility easement, not an access easement. So while people may have been using it to access their properties, the intention of this particular type of easement, at least as indicated on the plat, which is the legal document that we have for this, that usually shows these types of things, does show that it's a utility easement and not an access easement. So just wanted to clarify that before we head into the question and answer portion. And with that, Dallas, if you'll take me back to my presentation, and we'll probably be switching to the applicants here momentarily. All right, next slide. So in terms of next steps for the project, the site plan and minor plat are currently under review. It will continue to be under review until all of the comments and questions by members of the Development Review Committee, who include planners, engineers, public safety officials, are satisfied that all of our code requirements are met, at which point the plat would be recorded and site plan notification or site plan approval would also be recorded. Once the site plan is approved, the project would be able to go into building permit review and construction. We're not there yet. We're still at the very first stages of reviewing that plat as well as the site plan. Next slide. Yes, and this is where I'll turn it over to Pam and her team to discuss the specifics of the project.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right, so as you know, we're here tonight to talk about the Wesley Townhomes project. So next slide. This once again is just an overview of who we have with us this evening. Once again, that the applicant is the in-between of Longmont. I've listed there the current landowner is Heart of Longmont, and I say current landowner because we are doing that platting process because Heart of Longmont will be donating the land that we are platting off for the in-between to the in-between for their project. So eventually the in-between will be the landowner. And once again, we've got Kelly, our architect, and myself, project planner. Next. So just a quick overview of what we're going to cover with you tonight. Rod is going to talk next. He's going to share a little bit about Heart of Longmont and their history in the neighborhood and their plans for the property as we move forward. Then Tim is going to tell you about the in-between of Longmont and their program and some of the housing that they provide in Longmont. I will then go ahead and talk to you about the project itself and show you a site plan and some architectural elevations, and then we'll wrap things up and go to the question and answer session. So go ahead, next slide, and we'll turn it over to Rod.
Thank you, Pam. As Pam mentioned, I'm Rod Edmonds. I'm the treasurer at the Heart of Longmont, and my wife and I have been members there for over 20 years. The Heart of Longmont, formerly known as the First United Methodist Church, has been an integral part of the Longmont community for over 150 years and has been at its existing location since 1959. The church has a long history of working to address social issues like food insecurity, affordable housing issues, helping people experiencing homelessness, and the list goes on. Our work is evident in our commitments to the Hour Center, to homeless outreach providing encouragement, or the organization known as HOPE, Habitat for Humanity through Apostle Builds, Wild Plum, which we house one of their Longmont programs. It's part of the Head Start program, Agape Safe Haven, just to mention a few. As is the case with many mainline denominations and churches, attendance has been on the decline for decades, and the Heart of Longmont is no exception. Coupled with the online accessibility for worship experiences, largely due to the COVID situation, the need for all the parking space is no longer what it used to be. In the summer of 2022, we began discussions regarding how we could use some of our property to support the City of Longmont affordable housing priorities and initiatives. In the past, our efforts to support people experiencing homelessness met with mixed results. Providing much needed assistance to those in need, such as holiday meals and emergency overnight sheltering during the winter, came at the expense of a feeling of safety for our Wild Plum staff and families and people in our Kitely neighborhood. In 2018, we shifted our support from providing overnight services to actually our members now go to other locations of Hope to provide meals throughout the week. Recognizing the increased need for affordable housing and considering various options like pallet homes, safe lots, we settled on a goal to donate almost 0.8 of an acre of our parking lot to the in-between for the Wesley Townhomes project. Given our mission, our long-term commitment to working to support affordable housing initiatives, and our goal of being good neighbors, we felt this contribution was the best way for us to put more of God's love into the world. As Tim will share with you, they have a proven track record and program that I believe will benefit their clients and our neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Tim Rocco. I'm the Executive Director of the In-Between, and I'd like to start by giving a little bit of a brief history, and I'm going to take the assumption that anyone in the audience may not know much about the In-Between, and perhaps you do, but our mission is to provide affordable housing, and we do that obviously through site locations that we have around town. In doing so, we promote the stability to diverse families and individuals, along with supporting them through advocacy, life skills trainings, and a whole host of support services. And Dallas, if you want to go forward. So how people come to originate at the In-Between are through these partner agencies that you see here. And you can see that it's quite a collection of agencies that do good work around town, each serving different or specific populations that are in need of affordable housing and those kinds of supportive services that we can offer. I might back up and just mention that the In-Between is really a homegrown local 501c3 nonprofit, and it came to originate about 30 years ago in 1993 and has since grown over the years, but always serving partner agencies such as the ones you see here who have, again, populations of which they feel can benefit from the programming that we offer. I'll probably circle back because a few of these in specific, as we speak about the Wesley Townhomes, are probably going to be beneficiaries more so than a few others, but I'll bring that back around. Okay, Dallas, go ahead. So it was mentioned that we have a few other buildings around town, and that is the case. Many people know our original building at 250 Kimbark Street in the cul-de-sac next to the Safety and Justice Building downtown. But that's not our only building that we own and operate and provide these services. So among those are the list of 6 that you see. Most recently, we've actually added a couple of significant buildings to our portfolio, those being 230 Kaufman Street, which is 17 units right across from the post office, the main post office downtown, 230 Kaufman Street. And that largely serves families with children. And then it actually, I'm sorry, I should say 1515 Warren Avenue. 1515 Warren Avenue is right across from the tennis courts at Longmont High School. And I want to touch on that in a minute. And then we also purchased a building, a 10-unit building at 2011 Terry Street. And what you might see that with the exception of the 250 Kimbark Street building, that the collection of buildings that we own and operate tend to be smaller in nature. I think that is really the in-between's wheelhouse, where we tend to do well in serving communities and in smaller settings, and so they fit nicely within the community. And I think the one that we're talking about with Wesley Townhomes is no exception to that. You can go forward, Dallas. So how we do what we do is really through two main thrusts of programming, and that would be through transitional housing as well as permanent supportive housing. And transitioning housing still today is the bulk of the inventory of which we operate. And we've extended the timeline, but essentially it is a time limited opportunity for people to come to us again through those partner agencies to build stability and take advantage of the offerings that we have for up to 36 months. It used to be 24 months, but I think challenged by the surge in pricing with housing, we felt like we need to give people a little bit more time to be able to build capacity. So we've advanced that to 36 months now. And then the other third of offerings, of which the Wesley Townhomes is going to be in that category, are permanent supportive housing, where people who come to us still have all the advantages of the program offerings, but they are doing this in a long-term setting. Okay, Dallas. So I mentioned that supportive services. There are a number of things that the in-between offers, namely the advocacy or case management and life skills trainings. But in addition to that, we also have on-site food pantries. We like to find opportunities from within the communities, and at Wesley Townhomes, we believe that'll be just inherently part of what we do, is hosting community events and opportunities for community building with the residents that we have on site. And so this is I think a Cinco de Mayo that we did that you can see at the location at 230 Kaufman Street. Okay. So when I had mentioned, and I'm just sort of touching on some of this briefly, that why it is that we continue to expand our affordable housing offering is really to meet we're really very much in alignment with the City of Longmont inclusionary zoning mandate that went through the City Council and was passed in 2018, and we feel like we're very much in alignment with that. As you can see, and it is at this point, I think, very well known that access to housing is challenging, particularly for those who are of low income. And this is just a smattering of some statistics around our area, of which I think correlate to the argument that we try to push forward, which is that we just really need more inventory on the low end and really across the board. And the City of Longmont has recognized that for some time now. And so we're trying to advance housing at all levels. In our particular case, our niche would be affordable housing for those at 40% area median income and lower. And I'm going to mention that, I think, on the next slide, what that is about. But all of this, again, is related to those factors that you see here: gaps in wages, the surge in pricing, both for ownership as well as rental. And so we're about trying to help meet that inclusionary zoning mandate goal by 2035. And this is just a small offering, but it's an important one, and we feel like it's going to give people opportunity potentially with our transitional housing program to move into permanent housing. So of those households that I was speaking to at 230 Kaufman Street, we believe that that's probably going to be an excellent opportunity for some of those to move out of transitional housing into this option. It may not be only those, it can be referrals outside of that, but it may be people moving to this site location that have already been with the in-between for some time, and again, known to us and have done well in our program. And this would be an opportunity for them to continue that capacity building. Okay, next slide. And again, I had mentioned inclusionary zoning. This is a quick snapshot from the City of Longmont's website. So we're on board with the idea of advancing affordable housing for all populations, and feel that as a community we thrive when all populations can and do well for themselves. And so this is just some statistics around that. And I know that the City of Longmont is well on its way and doing some great things, and we're a part of that. Next slide. So, in kind of spinning this back to the concept of the Wesley Townhomes, this opportunity obviously has come to us by way of the Heart of Longmont Church and its generosity and understanding of providing a legacy and support for the City of Longmont. And it isn't a new concept. And in fact, the Congregational Land Campaign is something that you'll find that being advanced all throughout the Denver metro area. This is a little bit of a take on that through the Interfaith Alliance of Colorado. It is not our first foray into this type of a build. We have another on 9th and Francis, and I think we're going to get into that in the next one. So this is our second opportunity to be beneficiaries from such generosity, where we can do something good for the community. So next slide. The Micah Home Project is the one that I had mentioned. That's located on 9th and Francis, approximately. It's actually off of Warren Avenue that I mentioned, in Longmont High School. But this is, as it was going up, the First Congregational United Church of Christ donated 1/4 acre land. In this particular case, we built or constructed 6 permanently affordable apartment units. In that particular population, we wanted to assist would be those that would be considered elderly and or disabled. In the case of the Wesley Townhomes, we're looking more for families because they're going to be larger units, 2 and 3 bedroom units. And I think the next slide is a picture of what one of those looks like inside. Very nicely done. Okay, next slide. So I wanted to kind of speak to a few things around what this particular site. So with the donation of the 3/4 of an acre, of having that kind of a privilege, we recognize that this site needs to remain permanently affordable in perpetuity. And so there's going to be some deed restrictions placed on this plot of land with a reversionary clause that for some reason this in between were to cease to exist. It would go back to essentially kind of a first right of refusal back to the Heart of Longmont Church. But the intent is for this to remain affordable. I had mentioned, I'm circling back around to what exactly 40% area median income means, our applicant pool for this. So what that constitutes would be a 2-person family earning $42,000 roughly annually, or a family of 4, $53,000. Those would be the maximum. So what we're talking about is people they're not exceeding that amount, and so at the same time, understanding that all of the residents at the in-between do pay rent based on income. In this particular case, they're going to need to income qualify. And so rent prices are going to be set at that 40% AMI standard, which currently today would be $1,196 for a 2-bedroom and $1,381 for a 3-bedroom. And I think you might have seen on the previous slide, if you noticed that an average 2-bedroom is well over $1,800. So this is certainly a more affordable option for a lot of folks. And to put that again into another set of data that perhaps is helpful, there sometimes is unfortunately a misperception on low-income housing, as if folks are not doing their part or not doing everything they can to do well for themselves and family. We're talking about people who might be working at $20 an hour, earning roughly $42,000 annually. So we do have quite a few families that come to us where there may be a single parent family with a few children. That may be an example of a family that could benefit from such a project site, as they would fall into that 40% AMI category likely. And again, what we hope to offer, and Pam is going to speak to a little bit more as to what's involved with the project site itself. There will be a multi-purpose space available for ongoing case management and other program services, such as potentially food pantry trainings, life skills trainings, and those opportunities to build community from within. So that's going to be offered on site. Okay, we'll go to the next. So I wanted everyone to take away from today an understanding that the in-between of Longmont operates with the same types of lease and lease languages that you would see in just about any multi-housing complex in the state of Colorado. We work with a very common lease, but in addition to that, we actually have, so there's a standard rental lease language, but in addition to that, we do have elements within the lease itself that asks for and requires a program participation. And I think that's important to know because we ask maybe just a bit more of the residents who are taking advantage of affordable housing at the in-between. And so with that accountability and with that precedence, we find that people tend to do really well with this because they recognize the opportunity that's in front of them. And we're very much involved with their lives and in alignment with where they want to go and what they want to get out of what we have to offer. So again, it's a very natural partnership, we believe, with the Heart of Longmont Church. On site, I had mentioned that we have a couple of those 16 partner agencies. Wild Plum is one of those, and they make referrals to our program. They operate the Head Start that's already on site at the Heart of Longmont Church, and we believe that the families who potentially may be living at the Wesley Townhomes could take advantage of that in the future. And so that just seems like a natural fit. Wanted you also to know that eligibility into the program is for those who, we believe are motivated and interested in getting the most out of what we have to offer. We do have some standards. We do not allow sex offenders or those with a history of manufacturing dangerous drugs. Those would be automatic rule-outs in our eligibility. And we are strong partners with the city's crime-free, multi-housing crime-free prevention program, and have been for several years. And so with that comes some pretty stringent safety recommendations and access and that interaction regularly with police. And I did want to turn over to David Kennedy, who's on the call as well, as we have a longstanding relationship with David Kennedy. And I think he can speak from his experience as to our stewardship to the community and really how our residents operate within the 6 buildings we already operate within the city limits. But let me pass it over to David Kennedy.
All right, thanks, Tim. Let me first just start with a brief overview of what the crime-free housing programs is, so everybody understands. First of all, it is a voluntary program. There is no requirement from the city of Longmont that they participate in this program. By voluntarily engaging in this program, they're showing a commitment to safety, and they're committed to moving any problems out of their community if they do move in. Really, just to kind of give you a quick 50,000-foot view of how this program works, is it's a partnership between the police department, management and owners of property, as well as the residents. What it looks like as far as crime occurring on property. So anytime police, fire department, or code enforcement are at the crime-free property for any reason, the management, in this case, the in-between, will get a notification within 24 hours. It's an automated notification that basically just tells them at this date and time, police were on your property. That's where I come in. I actually will bring up that call for service. I will review it, and I'll share all the information about that police call for service with in-between staff. And the expectation behind that is, and the way the program really works, is when there is a problem, when a problem does surface, management has all the information they need in order to move forward with any kind of lease violation. If the problem is significant enough, then they can move towards eviction. Another part of the program that Tim mentioned is we have what we call a SEPTED evaluation. That's basically an on-site safety assessment that my partner Sarah Arnie and I do. We actually go out to the property in a case like this where it's actually being built out in the blueprint stages. We'll review those plans. We'll make safety recommendations based on SEPTED principles, which is a separate conversation, but it's an architectural principle regarding safety can be affected by certain things like not having adequate lighting, for example, or landscaping issues, things of that nature. So they're not only committed to working with us and addressing problems that are there, but they're also committed to building a safe environment. one that deters crime just based on the built environment itself. Something else that the in-between always does is they host community events, which they always invite Sarah, Arnie, and I to attend, which is great because the community event piece is where we as public safety get to meet residents. We get to show up to the community event. We get to talk to people and listen to any concerns they have that are public safety related. Real quick too, I pulled data on the Micah Homes project that Tim mentioned. I pulled the data on that property, on that address, because I think this property provides the best comparable data in terms of design and the land use, as well as, the surrounding neighborhood demographics and the population served. I think is the most similar out of all the in-between properties. So I pulled the last 3 years of data on police calls for service, and I found 4 total calls in 3 years, which in and of itself is significantly low. When I looked at each 4 calls for service and broke it down into actually what happened in those individual calls, none of those calls for service were anything to do with any kind of criminal act that had actually been committed by the resident. Just to give you a better understanding of the fact that police calls for service, there is a certain degree of normalcy as far as residents in our entire community, no matter what neighborhood we're talking about. There are police calls for service, and oftentimes it's just things being reported, maybe their bicycle got stolen, those kind of things, right? It's nothing that just because there's a police call for service, don't mistake that with being a negative, if you will. So to get you to better understand that, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what those 4 calls for service look like. So there was one call for service in 2020. Basically, that was a call where the resident called dispatch to report that they'd seen a male sleeping in his vehicle. The vehicle was parked on the public street. This person that was parked in that vehicle was passed out behind the wheel, and he was drunk. The person was driving drunk. He was not even from that portion of the city. He lived on the other side of the city. Fortunately, he managed to stop his car and was parked and didn't crash into somebody and seriously injure or kill somebody else. So that's a positive call from the community, right? They saw a problem and they called the police. 2021, there was 2 calls for service. Both calls were just phone calls from a resident requesting to talk to an officer because they had questions regarding civil matters that they were going through. Basically, they were having some financial matters with a soon-to-be ex of theirs where there was an ongoing dispute regarding property. So pretty common call for police as well. When relationships dissolve, sometimes, there's arguments over who gets the TV and the cat and all that good stuff. Those are things police can't get involved in, and we just referred that individual back to the civil courts to resolve. Only a judge can decide who gets what after a relationship is ending. In 2022, there were 0 calls for service. So an entire year, not a single call for service at all. In 2023, there's only been 1 now call so far this year. Basically, a resident had called police to report there was a suspicious person that was outside walking around her vehicle. So just like the call in 2020 with the DUI driver, to me, those are calls that means that residents are taking ownership of their property, they care about it, and they're trying to keep their home, their neighborhood safe by alerting police to something that is going wrong. One other property I'll just mention really quick because it is our direct neighbor. Right next to the Safety and Justice Building, the police department, and the court building is 250 Kimbark. And honestly, we consider them to be good neighbors. Once again, very low calls for service. I did not run that data specifically because, once again, I just ran this one because of the comparable data in terms of everything we're talking about with this build. So that's all I have for now, Tim. I will hang around and pass it to the next person.
All right, I'll pick it back up again. Next slide. All right, so we have here just a map to make sure everybody understands where Wesley Townhomes is proposed to be located. So you can see the location of the Heart of Longmont Church, and on the very north end of their parking lot, that rectangle there just shows you the approximate location of that 0.8 acre area where Wesley Townhomes, where we're planning a lot to be able to accommodate the Wesley Townhomes. So, next slide. So now I'm going to go ahead and step you through the proposed site plan. As we've discussed, there's going to be a total of 11 townhome units in the project. There are 4 separate buildings. The first building up in the northwest corner, referred to as Building A, that building has 2 units in it. Both of those units are single-story units. They're set up so that they can be ADA accessible. Then the middle building on the north side, that one is Building B. There's 4 units in that building. All 4 units are 2-story units. And then the building in the northeast corner, that's Building C. The unit on the far west side, and then in the middle there, those are 2-story townhome units. And then on the far east side of that building is where the community room will be located, that Tim described, where services can be provided to residents there and have a space there for people to use. And then on the south side of the site plan is Building D, and that building has 3 units. All 3 of those units will be 2-story units. So all of the buildings, the units are oriented such that they face in toward the center of the property. On this property, there will be a parking lot that there will be 13 parking spaces. So 11 of those parking spaces are just standard parking spaces. 2 of them will be ADA accessible parking spaces. In addition, recognizing the fact that our world is changing and more common, people are beginning to get electric vehicles, while the in-between currently doesn't have any residents that have an electric vehicle. The time will come when that happens, and so we've kind of planned ahead. And a couple of the spots, there's some parallel parking spaces that are on the south end of the parking lot area. We're getting those set up so that it'll be easy to be able to provide electric charging stations for electric vehicles there. The parking lot is designed such that it's a one-way in off of Emory Street into the parking lot. That's the reason why those parking spaces are at an angle, so that you'll be able to enter the parking lot, and then when you exit the parking lot, you'll enter to the south, and it'll be onto the Heart of Longmont's existing parking lot, and then they can go through the parking lot out to Emory Street to be able to leave. We recognize that because we have essentially 13 parking spaces for this 11 unit project, that there is the potential that there could be the need for some additional parking spaces, potentially for a resident or guests who are visiting residents there. And so the in-between is working with the Heart of Longmont on a parking agreement to be able to allow some use of the parking lot that Heart of Longmont has to be able to meet any overflow kind of parking needs associated with Wesley Townhomes. As Tim described, this is being designed with families in mind. So kind of in the center there between units C and D, the green rectangle, that's like a community garden. There's also plans for a playground space for children. And then over there on the east side of the site, where it showed just green, we left that all open. And the reason for that is because, as Jennifer had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, there is a utility easement there. And so we can't build anything on the utility easement. So that's protected there. All All right, I think that does it for the site plan. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. We can take a look at some architecture. So all 4 buildings will look a little bit different. So I have a slide for each building to be able to show you. So the first one is building A there in the northwest corner. As I mentioned, this is the one that has the 2 single-story units in it. So the elevation on the upper left is the south elevation, which you'd see it faces south. The one on the right there is the elevation on the north side of that building. And then on either side of the map there to the left is the west elevation, and on the right is the east elevation of that building. This is the one that is, the building will be ADA accessible, which is why they're single-story units. Next slide. We've got building B. This is the building that has 4 units in it. All 4 will be 2-story townhomes. So once again, the elevation on the left is the south facing elevation. The one on the right is the north facing elevation. And then on either side of the map there, we've got the west elevation on the left and the east elevation on the right. Next slide. And here we are at building C in the northeast corner of the lot. So on building C, the 2 units that are on the 2-story are townhome units, and then that single-story portion of the building that you see there, that's the community room. So the community room is on the east side of that building. So you see the south elevation on the left, upper left, the north elevation, upper right, and then once again on the west elevations on the left and the east elevations on the right. And one more slide. This is building D, which has 3 units. So this one is oriented so that the pretty much like the front of the units is facing north. But still on the left, upper left corner is the south elevation of the building. On the upper right is the north elevation. And then we've got the west elevation on the left and the east elevation on the right. So those are our 4 buildings. They are designed with some energy efficiency in mind. And if there's any specific questions about architecture, as I mentioned, we do have Kelly on the call, and she would be able to answer those questions later. So I think next slide. That concludes our presentation this evening. We want to thank you for joining us, and I think we're ready for moving forward to the question and answer session.
Great, thanks, Pam. Dallas, if we can get the slide with that call-in information up, I'll turn it over to you so you can talk people through this.
Sure thing. So we are going to take a 5-minute break here while you guys call in. The way you'll do that is you'll dial the toll-free number 1-888-788-0099. When prompted, you'll enter the meeting ID. That's 865-3379-6472. Once you do that, there'll be a bit of a pause. I will be letting folks in. We will then go over what I'll need you guys to do after the 5 minutes once you are in the chat. So starting a little timer. Feel free to take a 5-minute break, guests, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. We're at about 4 minutes. So in about 1 minute, we are going to come back. Currently, we have no callers. Callers, if you are watching the YouTube live stream and you would like to call in, now's your chance. That number one last time is 1-888-788-0099. Once you're there, enter the meeting ID 865-3379-6472. Got about 30 seconds left before we come back. Thanks. Okay, and with that, we are at the 5 minute mark. Currently, Jennifer, I am seeing no callers.
All right, well, we will go ahead and conclude if that's the case. Do I have my contact information on that last slide, Dallas?
I do not see it, no.
Oh, I do apologize. So if any questions come up following this meeting, if something comes to mind after we stop the recording and stop the live stream, feel free to reach out to either me or Pam. Our information was on the notice letter that you received. I do apologize for not having my contact information up there. I am Jennifer Hewitt-Apperson. You can reach out to me at 303-651-8439. And we'll get your questions answered. Otherwise, on behalf of the city of Longmont and the in-between team, I would like to thank Pam and Rod and David and Tim and Kelly for all being here this evening. We'll conclude. And as I said, if you have any questions that come up after the fact, feel free to reach out to us. So thank you very much and good night.